People don't experience pain based on objective rankings. They experience pain or nervousness based on their current capacity, current perspective, and current stage of life. So a breakup at 16 can feel the world is ending. Fourth grade at the age of 9 can feel terrifying. Launching a business at 30 can feel like jumping off of a cliff. Hello. Welcome to Healthy Systems Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mo. I'm super excited for today's episode. It's going to be short, but it's going to be coming from a personal experience I had recently. So as many of you know, I recently became a girl dad. My daughter, baby girl, wife is healthy, baby girl is healthy, with the grace of God. And, we had some guests over at the house and my sister came over and I see my nephews and nieces often, but this day was special. So my niece, she brought out something that I think will help a lot of you because I was having this interaction with a 9-year-old. So my niece just finished third grade, right? And she told me she's scared to go to the fourth grade, right? She thinks like, okay, I need to be much, much smarter to go to fourth grade, to survive fourth grade. And my first instinct was to smile because I'm sitting there thinking, fourth grade? Like I'm only 20 years ahead of her and I don't even remember fourth grade, right? And then I caught myself. I'm like, to her, fourth grade is not small. To her, fourth grade is that next mountain, that new teacher, that new classroom, the new expectations, the new kids, the new unknowns. And I told her something that I think a lot of adults need to hear too. You see, you're not afraid of fourth grade. You're not afraid of that next mountain. You're just unfamiliar, right? And that's what today's episode is all about. So welcome back to Healthy Systems, the show where we talk about building systems that actually work across the 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. So today's one of those episodes that come from real life. No complicated science, no crazy research breakdown, just a simple moment with my niece that made me think about fear, perspective, and the way we deal with problems. Because the truth is, a lot of what we call fear is just unfamiliarity, okay? We're not always afraid because something is dangerous. Sometimes we're afraid because it is new and our brain does not like new, okay? So the fourth grade problem, as I like to call it, my niece obviously just finished third grade and now she's nervous about fourth grade. And again, from my perspective as an adult, it's easy to laugh. I'm thinking fourth grade, you'll be fine. Then I realize that's exactly what adults do, like at each phase of their life. Someone tells us they're stressed about a breakup and we think, well, you'll get over it. Someone tells us they're nervous about starting the gym and we think, just go. Someone tells us they're overwhelmed by their first job, first business, first baby, first move, first hard season. And we minimize it because we're not inside their nervous system. But to the actual person who's experiencing it, that may be the biggest thing they've ever faced. For my niece, fourth grade is not just fourth grade. It's the unknown. And the unknown always feels bigger before you walk into it, right? So the episode today is you're not afraid. You are not afraid. You're just unfamiliar. That is the line I want you to sit with because a lot of fear is just a lack of repetitions. Think about it. The first time you walked to the gym, it felt scary. You don't even know where the machines were. You don't know if people are looking at you. You don't know what exercises to do. You feel awkward. But after 2 days, after 5 days, after 30 days, same gym, same machine, same people, but completely different feeling. So what changed? Not the gym. You changed. It just became familiar, right? So the first sales call you took in your business was scary. The first time you did surgery on your patients was scary. The first time you saw a patient was scary. The first time you went to the court as a lawyer was probably scary. The first podcast episode is scary. The first time you post online is scary, right? The first time you become a parent, right? When you have your baby girl or baby boy holding him in your hand, that's scary. I'm going through that right now, right? But the thing is, it's all scary and it's not going to be scary for long because before you have enough repetitions, the fear exists and then the fear just goes away because familiarity creates confidence. And that's why you can't think your way out of every fear, right? You can't therapize yourself. You can't be overly analytical all the time. You just have to expose yourself to the thing long enough for your brain to realize, oh, this wasn't that bad. We're safe here, right? So that's the overarching, like you're not afraid, you're just unfamiliar perspective. Now I'm going to give you a 20-year perspective because remember, I'm about 20 years ahead of my niece. right? And fourth grade to me, I don't even remember. If I really dig, I could probably think of like one or two memories from the entire fourth grade, right? And I'm only 20 years ahead of her, right? Imagine thinking from a 50-year ahead perspective. Imagine going forward in your life and being like, man, when I'm like gonna be 80, when I'm gonna be 70, would I still be worried about this? And the answer most of the time is no, right? So here's what really hit me. I'm only about 20 years ahead of my niece, and I don't even remember fourth grade. Something that feels used to her right now is something I barely have a memory of. And that made me think, right? What am I worried about right now that 20 years from now, I won't even remember, right? What are you stressing out about right now that your future self might barely think about? That business problem you're struggling with, that awkward conversation, that slow month, the number on the scale, the embarrassing post on social media, the client who said no, the patient who yelled at you, whatever, the season where you feel behind. Right now, it feels huge, but 20 years from now, you may not even remember it. And then you can take it even further. Imagine someone 50 years ahead of you, like I said, someone in their 80s, someone who's seen life, somebody who's, given birth to their kids and the kids are grown and, they have grandkids now. Someone who's been there 50 years ahead of you. They've lost people. They've started over. They've built things. They've failed. They've succeeded. They've raised families. They've buried friends. They've watched decades pass. If they looked at your current problems, would they panic? Would they be worried? Probably not. They might have compassion for you, but they probably wouldn't panic, right? Just like I had some compassion of over fourth grade to my niece, I wasn't worried, right? And deep down, I told her with certainty, you'll be fine. I'm telling you, you'll be fine. You don't even need to do anything. Just go into it. Don't be nervous. Enjoy the summer. And then when fourth grade comes, you'll tackle it the same way you tackle second grade and third grade, right? So that's the thing. Because from 50-year ahead perspective, most of our problems either look different or they cease to exist. Not because they don't matter, but because time gives you perspective. And perspective shrinks the monster. Remember that. The perspective change, that fourth grade monster that's probably staring at you right now, because all of us have our fourth grade monsters. All of us got that mountain ahead of us that looks very scary. That monster shrinks when you shift the perspective from a 20-year versus a 50-year, person looking at it, right? So that's the thing. And there's a really cool story that Jocko Willink, who's a former Navy SEAL and has a pretty famous podcast and has written a lot of great books. Jocko Willink talks about how when he was a Navy SEAL and he was in the military, he came back from a deployment in the Middle East, came back, United States, and, he had a daughter, and his daughter was in high school. And he talked about coming back from deployment. At that point, he'd seen combat, he had seen violence, he's lost some of his closest friends, real life and death situations. And then he came home, and his daughter is heartbroken over a breakup. She's breaking up with her boyfriend. She is devastated. She's a middle school, high school kid, right? She's devastated. She's crying. She's worried. And his first instinct as a Navy SEAL was basically, what are you so worried about? This is nothing, right? Because compared to war, compared to combat, compared to losing friends, a teenage breakup seemed small. But then he caught himself and he realized, no, this is her Iraq. This is the biggest thing she's facing right now. This is her combat, right? And I think that is such a powerful lesson because it gives you empathy. Because people don't experience pain based on objective rankings. They experience pain or nervousness based on their current capacity, current perspective, and current stage of life. So a breakup at 16 can feel the world is ending. Fourth grade at the age of 9 can feel terrifying. Starting the gym at 35 can feel humiliating. Launching a business at 30 can feel like jumping off of a cliff. Having your first child can feel overwhelming. And yes, from the outside, someone else might say, that's not a big deal. I have 4 kids. Mo, what are you scared about having the first one, right? But inside your mind, inside that person's mind, it is a big deal. So the lesson is not to mock the fear or tell them to hey, don't worry about it. The lesson is to help them walk through it, right? So that's the biggest thing because the problem is real, but so is your growth. So this is where we need balance, right? On one side, you don't want to minimize people's problems. But on the other side, you also don't want to worship your own problems because both can be true. Your problems can feel real and you can still grow bigger than it. Your fear can feel real and you can still take the next step, right? Your anxiety, your nervousness might be valid, but it's still not your boss, right? You've done harder things. And I think one of the most empowering beliefs I have is I've done harder things because I have, right? I've went and climbed mountains that took us 16 hours to get to the top, 16 hours of just brutal snow incline, right? I've done harder things. I've gone through heartbreaks. I've gone through a divorce. I've gone through a lot of tough things in life. And through it all, you made it work. So I'm sure you've done plenty of hard things. So whenever the next monster shows up, just remind yourself, just give yourself hope. Hey, I've done harder things. And then with God's grace, you make it through, right? Because you're not afraid. You're not afraid of fourth grade, whatever that fourth grade is for you. You're just unfamiliar, right? And in few years, you won't even remember that. In few decades, it'll just cease to exist. So just put yourself in that 20-year ahead version of you, that 50-year ahead version of you, and be like, would that older version of me still be scared of this? And the answer most of the time is no, right? And the thing is, you don't just become confident before you do the thing. Confidence comes because you did the thing. Confidence is just fear that you overcame, and your body gets that confidence. So that's one thing I want you to remember. And what this means for you, right? Let's bring it back to your health. What this means for your health is this shows up in fitness all the time. I have clients tell me all the time, they're like, I'm afraid to go to the gym. I'm scared to start. I'm scared people will judge me. I'm scared I'll fail again. I'm scared I won't know what to eat. I'm scared I'll mess up. I've messed up before, coach. And I understand that. But most of the time, you're not afraid of fitness. You're just unfamiliar with being the kind of person who takes care of themselves consistently, right? You're unfamiliar with strength training because nobody taught you. You're unfamiliar with meal prepping because nobody taught you. You're unfamiliar with setting boundaries. You're unfamiliar with saying no. You're unfamiliar with going to bed on time. You're unfamiliar with being disciplined. So it feels scary. But once it becomes familiar, it becomes normal. It becomes second nature, right? And that becomes your identity. So that's the whole point of having healthy systems. Systems turn scary things into repeatable things. Like this becomes second nature to you. And repeatable things become familiar. And the thing with familiar things is they just become a part of who you are, right? So the question that changes everything, that's really been helpful for me, and my niece kind of brought it back, which was, will this monster I'm afraid to go into, will this fourth grade monster, let's call it, will this problem still feel this big 20 years from now? And if the answer is no, then breathe. Take the next step. It's not the end of everything, right? Don't make a permanent identity out of a temporary fear, right? If you're afraid to start a business, ask yourself, will a 20-year-old version of me still be afraid? And the answer is likely no. You have to take the first step, right? And then ask, what would the 50-year-old version ahead of me tell me right now, right? So if you're 25 years old, ask yourself, what would the 75-year-old version tell me? If you're 30 years old, what would the 80-year-old version tell me? Would they tell you to quit? Would they tell you to panic? Would they tell you to hide? Probably not. They'll probably just say, relax. You're going to be okay. Take the next step. And they can probably, if they're older version of you, they can probably tell you how it all ended up. They'll tell you how good it was. They'll tell you like, hey, don't change anything. You're about to learn some of the best lessons of your life, right? And that's the voice we need to borrow sometimes, because right now we're too close to our own problems. Kind of like you're in the glass of water. You can't see outside. Your perspective is just, I've talked about the crabs in a bucket mentality, where once the crabs are inside the bucket, they can't see the outside. They feel like this is their universe. This little bucket is all they got, right? But once you're inside the storm, everything feels huge. But once you zoom out, you realize this is just one chapter. This is not the whole book, right? So the final lesson, and this is the lesson, my niece reminded me of, is you're not always afraid. Sometimes you're just unfamiliar. And the answer to unfamiliarity is not avoidance. The answer is exposure, repetitions, support, perspective, and courage, right? Don't laugh at someone else's fourth grade. Don't minimize someone else's heartbreak. Don't mock someone else's fear, because that might be their Iraq, right? But also, don't let your current fear convince you that you're incapable. You're not incapable. You're just meeting a new version of life. And every new version of life feels unfamiliar at first. Just like fourth grade was, fifth grade was, the gym, the marriage, the parenthood, the business, the leadership, the loss, the growth. It all feels scary before it becomes familiar. So take the next step. One day, the thing you're scared of right now might be something you barely remember. So if you're in a season where your health, your body, your discipline, or your life feels unfamiliar, that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you need a system. And if you want help building that system around nutrition, training, recovery, sleep, stress, accountability, if you went through a recent change in your life, maybe you went through a divorce, maybe you went through a heartbreak, maybe you just had your first child or second child and life is just chaotic and your health is slipping, or you took on a new job and your health is getting harder to maintain, reach out. That's what I have literally a full coaching service for, where we help our clients take them from where they're at to where they want to go. And we do that with, proper nutrition, training, proper one-on-one coaching around all of those topics. Then you're going to get a lot of that support. So first of all, the easiest way to get a hold of me is to just go to our website, twtt.us/client, book a call and let's chat. Or you can just find me on Instagram or Facebook. It's just Mo Gaius, MOEGHIAS. Just shoot me a message with the word podcast. We usually get, tons of messages every single day. So just mention the word podcast, so then me or my assistant will know that you came from the podcast and we'll hook you guys up with some bonuses. But overall, I'm super excited for you. And then the last remark I want to make, which is you're not afraid. You're just unfamiliar. And the best way to get familiar is to expose yourself, be around people that are doing it. That's their new normal, right? My niece is not going to feel better about fourth grade by hanging out with second graders. She will feel better about fourth grade if she just hangs out with people that are 20 years ahead of her, and they'll make her realize how fourth grade is not the end of life. There's bigger mountains to climb after that. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Systems podcast. I really appreciate you for tuning in today. Now, here are 2 ways I can help you for free. One, you can join our free Facebook community by just going to this link, bit.ly/Titan Facebook group. Just type that into your browser and then answer 2 questions, and then we'll let you into our Facebook community where you'll meet other people, as well as we have a lot of free resources in terms of meal plans, workouts, all kinds of stuff in there. Second way I can help you for free is if you follow me on Instagram at Mo Gaius, MOEG as in George, H as in horse, I as in India, A as in apple, S as in Sam. Follow me there and then shoot me a message with the word Healthy Systems, and then I'll be sure to send you a free gift. Other than that, keep listening in, and I really appreciate you.